David Mullin is with us this morning. He's the Executive Director for Habitat for Humanity. David, a pleasure to meet you. Thank you so much for coming in this morning.
Thank you.
The most interesting thing about when you think about Habitat for Humanity, I was talking with Ernie about this. I think of Habitat for Humanity, I think of President Jimmy Carter.
Right, our most famous volunteer.
Yeah. And then when I think about Habitat for Humanity in Vermont, I go, I didn't know we had one here.
Exactly.
And you've been here for how many years, David?
A little over 11 years now as the Executive Director for Habitat. And, a lot of folks don't know that Habitat is in our own backyard. Lots of folks know of it. They help all around the world. But Habitat is one of the largest home builders in the world, but we build in our own backyard, too, here in Vermont.
And you've built over 50 homes in the Burlington area, correct?
In Chittenden County alone, right. And there are 7 other affiliates around Vermont. So in most communities in Vermont, you've got a Habitat for Humanity chapter or affiliate.
Now, who started Habitat for Humanity?
Actually, it was started by a gentleman named Millard Fuller, an attorney, very wealthy attorney in Americus, Georgia. And he had what he said was a calling and gave up most of his boats and cars and everything and decided to build homes in his community for families in need, families that were living in substandard housing, working families, but they needed a simple, decent, and affordable housing. And that's where it started. And it just began to grow from there. And Green Mountain Habitat is an affiliate of the international organization. We don't get ongoing support from Habitat International, but we're able to raise money locally to build homes for families that are living in substandard housing. And a lot of folks don't think of Chittenden County as having a whole lot of substandard housing, but in fact, you would be surprised when we do visits to the homes where these families live. It's unbelievable where some of our neighbors are living.
Now, how do you determine substandard? What's the definition of a substandard home?
Absolutely. Can be unsafe or unhealthy conditions, can be overcrowding. Because of the cost of rent in Chittenden County and around Vermont as a whole, the rents are so high that families can't afford to get out of where they're in to get into something better. And so when Habitat does an evaluation of a family situation, we go in and through a rigorous application process, we do a site visit and see where they're living. And lots of single moms trying to raise families, working hard to support them. But husbands and wives that work in our community that you know of, that you would never dream that they live in those kind of conditions. And so Habitat is able to help them with a hand up, not a handout.
Yeah, you don't give them the house, right? In fact, you're looking for a little bit of sweat equity as well, right?
Absolutely, yeah. In fact, a lot of folks think of Habitat, they're the folks that give the houses away. Well,
you don't.
In fact, that's not true at all. Habitat sells the house. They sell it to the family at cost, and it's a 25-year zero-interest loan. And Habitat is able to do that through the generosity of local businesses and individuals that contribute to Habitat. We build the house, which takes about 400 volunteers to build a single house in our community. And folks step up from all walks of life to help us build that house. And then Habitat sells the house. The family repays that mortgage directly back to Habitat, and we recycle those donation dollars over and over and over again.
Now you're very careful, too, about, this process of who you build a home for. Obviously, they have to be able to pay back the loan. I mean, so you're looking at it just as a mortgage broker would, right? Even though it's a 0% loan, you want to make sure that they've got the income to pay back the loan. How do you determine the size of the house? How is that all figured out?
Sure, yeah. Well, first, Habitat doesn't select a family until we have a piece of land. And most folks think the land and the building materials are donated. Habitat purchases those in most cases. In fact, the town of Charlotte donated 3 building lots to Green Mountain Habitat 2 years ago. That's only the second time in 25 years we've had land donated to us. So we purchase a piece of land most of the time. Then we select a family, and the family has to be at or below 50% of median income. They have to be working or have some income to be able to support that mortgage. They have to be living in that substandard housing and be willing to put in the case of if there's a husband and wife that head up, or 2 adults that head up the household, they have to put in 400 hours of sweat equity helping us build that house or other Habitat houses.
Is there any stipulation where they must remain in that house for a length of time? What I'm getting at is somebody...
flipping it.
Yeah, they go in there for about 5 years and say, Ooh, market's pretty good here. I think we'll sell. How does that work?
Yeah, Ernie, that's a great question because automatically, if the house is sold to the family at cost, typically the house is worth, we have an appraisal done, a fair market appraisal, it's worth twice as much as we sell it for, typically, as a ballpark. There's a perpetual affordability covenant on the property. And so Habitat has the first right to purchase that property back should it go on the market. And
you would purchase it at what price?
Yep. There's the family is entitled to all of their mortgage payments back that they paid in, plus 25% of the appreciation during that period. We had a family that lived in Burlington. They purchased the house 10 years ago through Habitat. For health reasons, he had to move to a warmer climate. And so we purchased the house back. That family at the closing walked away with $30,000 between the appreciation of the property and their payments back, which is the nest egg that it's designed to do.
Right.
Habitat purchased the property, and we resold it to another Habitat family. And it's a perpetual affordability covenant, similar to some of what the Land Trust uses, that kind of model.
Sure.
We're very, very grateful to the Vermont Housing Conservation Board, which helps us with grants sometimes on these properties. We couldn't do it without it, and so that's very, very important to us.
And I know you're very busy here, but just north in Franklin County, there's a very good chapter there. They seem to be on the go and building all the time.
They are, Ernie. In fact, the Franklin Grand Isle chapter is a chapter under Green Mountain Habitat's wing, if you will, and they build an average of one house a year up in that area, and certainly there's a need up in that area for affordable housing.
Definitely. And I saw a home they built, well, not too long ago. It's a beautiful home.
It is.
Yeah.
You know, it's amazing what these folks do. We have skilled volunteers that come out and supervise the volunteers because we have volunteers that come out from all walks of life that some people have never picked up a hammer before, and you have to show them which end of the hammer to hold.
Well,
it's a lot of fun, and that's one of the...
But who heads it all up? I mean, you have to have a crew leader there, somebody that knows what they're doing, and are these people that are volunteering their time and they work with you for individual homes, or are they on the payroll and they're always with Habitat?
No, they're not on the payroll. In fact, there's only three employees of Green Mountain Habitat. All the rest are volunteers. In fact, we have 3 or 4 people that have been with us for years that are skilled carpenters that go through the entire process. They'll start with the house and then move through it as it goes through its stages of construction. Those folks are donating all of their time. Habitat usually works 2 or 3 days a week, and we get anywhere between 6 and 18 volunteers out at any one time to help us build. But those skilled supervisors, of which we're always looking for more, are willing to put in that amount of time. It's incredible, the generosity in our community.
What about fundraising? I don't hear a lot about fundraising efforts. Where do you get your capital to buy land and to buy the materials?
Yeah, well, the majority of the donations we get are from individuals. We also get some local corporate support. Those corporations that feel committed to helping local families. Lowe's gives grants to Habitat, building materials and such like that sometimes. Some of our local smaller businesses step up with giving their employees time off and such like that. But donations are raised mostly through individuals. We do annual appeal letters and such like that. We do some fundraising events. In fact, we just hired a full-time development director. So I can guarantee you're going to be hearing more from Green Mountain Habitat.
Well, make sure that they get in touch with us. Yeah. Always happy to help out these organizations. What about schools? Do you ever, like when you say you need 400 volunteers to help build a home? A lot of schools have
the building
programs.
Trades.
They got the building trades. Do you incorporate any of those kids?
We do, in fact. Yep, absolutely. The Youth Build group, as well as local schools and such. There is some, because it is a construction site. By nature, it's not exactly a safe environment. We do have some insurance regulations. Nobody under 16 can be on the construction site during construction. But then people younger than that come out sometimes when we're doing landscaping and such like that. We have something for for everybody on the construction site at one time or another. In fact, we have difficulty because we have more volunteers that contact us that would like to help than we have spots for it. So we're trying to raise more money because the need is out there and the community is willing to step up.
Now, when you talk about, for instance, the family that's going to benefit from this, they're going to have an opportunity to buy a home at cost, 0% interest over 25 years, and they have to put some sweat equity in. Do you put some of the responsibility on them to get some of the volunteer crews to come out? Hey, you got friends, you have family, you've got to kind of lobby them to help
Absolutely.
put your house together.
They get involved in all different ways. And that's one of the unique parts about Habitat. That's what makes that house so special to that family, is because they have helped from day one. They have hands-on experience. They know what's inside that wall, never mind on the outside of that wall. And they do. We ask them to get friends and family and everybody else, their co-workers, and put the word out that Habitat is, in fact, in your community, and Habitat needs your help, whether it be lending your skills as somebody to work on the site, or somebody in the committees. There's also a lot of back office work that's done by the board of directors and committee chairs. Every single family that's selected by Habitat is assigned a family support person, because not only do we want them to get into a simple, decent, and affordable house, we want them to get into a house that they're going to be successful in. So a family support person works with them through the entire process and then even afterward.
What a feeling that must be to build your own home.
It's
to be there from day one and to hands-on build a home.
It's life-changing.
Yeah.
And I have the benefit as a full-time employee to see these families sometimes before they start the process, where they came from during the process, and then sometimes to go back afterwards and see what a difference it has made in the lives. I'll tell you, if you had an hour and a half, I could sit down and tell you some stories about what I hear from these families on what a change it made, not only to the children being able to go into a home of their own, the pride that those young people have in owning their own home, but then what it means for the parents to be able to know that they're providing a home, because it's not a gift. They're providing a home for their family that their children can come home to and be raised and do their homework in and be proud of. It's life-changing.
In some ways, probably cheaper than paying rent.
Without a doubt.
Right?
A lot of these families are going into a Habitat home and spending less on housing than they were before in this area.
Yeah, and building equity and...
Oh, sure.
Absolutely.
Sure.
Yeah. Absolutely.
How do you determine the size of the home? I mean, you go to a family, and how do you determine that?
Yeah, Habitat International has guidelines.
Okay.
Our houses are typically 1,120 to 1,150 square feet.
Okay.
Again, they're not big houses. They're quality houses. All of them are energy-efficient houses. In fact, we just completed one this spring that was the first house in the United States, first modular home in the United States to be built to the Passive House standard, which is an extremely energy-efficient standard. In fact, during the construction process throughout the winter, we heated the house with one little plug-in heater. It was unbelievable how tight that house was. That's what Habitat is about, building those quality homes, but keeping it simple, decent, and affordable.
And that's the key, too. You're keeping it affordable for them to live in for the next however long they choose to live there.
It does.
Keeping
I think
bills
it's the realtors can probably get the facts, but I think it's 7 or 8 years is a typical home ownership, and then the house turns over. With Habitat, it's much, much longer than that. In fact, we have very few families that move out of their homes. They're in there for a lifetime.
Well, David, nice to meet you this morning. Appreciate you coming in, and great to hear about this for myself, and I'm sure some of our listeners this morning go, wow, didn't know they were even here. And maybe they're thinking about, helping in some way. They'd like to volunteer. Do they contact you directly? Is there a website? And if there's a family that is living in what they consider a substandard home, and they think that they might be eligible to get a Habitat for Humanity home, How do they get in touch with you?
They can easily go right to our website. It's vermonthabitat.org, spelled out, vermonthabitat.org. And you can go on that site to donate. You can go on that site to volunteer or just learn more about Habitat. You can also find out, if you don't live in Chittenden County, there's a listing there on that site to tell you where in Vermont there are other Habitat sites. And if you want to travel around the world with Habitat International, there's a link for that as well.
Tradespeople, carpenters out there that would like to volunteer their time, or if you are in need of a new home and you want Habitat for Humanity to help you out, here's the number to call again, 872-8726, 872-8726, or vermonthabitat.org. Check it out online. David, nice to meet you this morning.
Nice to meet you guys. Thanks very much.
Thank you.